Record. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. My name's Julia Wilson, and I'm the current program manager for Chadwick Arboretum and Learning Gardens. And I have been here for about 4.5 years. I started back in 2020, and then everything closed down for COVID. And at that time, we were doing a big evaluation of how volunteer program works and how we can improve it. And what you're seeing today with this info session is a part of that improvement. So what we'll do is we'll plan for just about 30 minutes. I'll try to not bog you down with too much information, but with the information that you need in order to get out here for the first time and know where to park and what times we have volunteer sessions and who you might meet when you're out here. That way it's not disorienting, because I know that coming to campus for the first time can be a real surprise every time. So welcome and thank you so much for being interested in being a volunteer with us. Chadwick Arboretum is a 44-year-old public garden and arboretum at Ohio State University. And if you're not familiar with an arboretum it's basically a museum of trees. And because we're here at Ohio State and associated with that and supporting that, we are also a place of research, and a place maybe for students, staff, faculty, the neighbors, the community, to just have a green space that is really fantastic place of respite too. So we'll go over all the things that we do throughout the year, but that's just sort of high level who we are and what we do. So if you were looking overhead of the Arboretum, you would not see one giant vast piece of green space, because of course not. We're here in the university district. Of course, we don't have one big tract of land, but we do have many little gardens that are very close to each other on what they call sort of Midwest or West or ag side of campus. And it's just nestled in between 315 and Olentangy River Road. So if you've been to the Learning Gardens, you're around Cotman, Howlett Hall, right here. And then if you've been to the Lane Avenue Gardens, where we have our labyrinth and our conifer collection, that's right along Lane Avenue and down Olentangy. We have our Block Cancer Survivors Plaza across from the Schottenstein Center. And then across the other way is our biggest area. It's more like a park-like vibe to it. It has a lake, 1,000 native tree collection, a net zero tiny home, and it's right next to the 4-H Center. And that's sort of the address we give people to get there. It's definitely more of our hidden gem. And so if you haven't been there, I'm not surprised. Many people haven't. The volunteers do a lot to help raise awareness about that area. And that's also where our barn is, which is the long building here, along with our cold frames, our high tunnels where we grow plants or store them or store things in them for maybe our plant sale. So just kind of giving you an orientation so you'll know if we say, oh, we're going to be meeting at the Chadwick operations barn or in the compound, you'll be back here in this area. And if we say, oh, meet at the Howlett Hall office or in Howlett Hall for this meeting, which is where I'm located and our director is, you come to here. And so it's interesting. It's definitely a patchwork of places, but over time you get to know each one and see how it's all very, very continuous. So who we are a makeup of a changing body of people. What has been so fascinating about the past 4 years, especially, is we've had huge transitions in leadership and in our staff, which has been very exciting. So we had a longtime director, Mary Maloney, who was with us for 27 years leading the helm. And when she retired and stepped down, it took us nearly 3 years to find that perfect replacement. And we really did find her. Her name's Dr. Laura Dieter, and she is a director of Chadwick Arboretum, but also 60% of her time is actually as professor of horticulture and crop sciences. So if you ever get a chance to hear her talk or step into a class with her, I would definitely recommend that because she is a amazing amount of knowledge when it comes to all things horticulture. And then just actually in May, we hired a entirely new position for the Arboretum called our Horticulture Operations Manager. Lisa Metcalf has been working though in the field for 20-ish years. And so she's like expert level horticulture knowledge. And then I just took this picture today of our current operations and programming team. And it's not everybody, but it changes. It balloons a lot in the spring and summer when we have our interns, which right now we have, I think, about five of them, including our office assistant. And then we have 2 horticulture apprentices, Anna and Zoe. And this is Anna right here. And then 1 horticulturist as well, just full-time horticulturist, and her name's Pam. So if you come across any of these names or faces while you're here, these are the people, if you're volunteering in the gardens, that you will come across this season. So with that, we really shrink down about at the end of August when the students all return to school. We shrink back down to just our core group of us. And so it really is the volunteers who keep us going year after year. And we asked them one year at our volunteer appreciation dinner, which is every September, and I had them fill out this word cloud, and the bigger words meant more people were saying it. We asked them, why do you volunteer at Chadwick Arboretum? And a lot of them said things that kind of surprised me. If you'll notice, beauty, of course, that's no surprise. It's beautiful. Even here in the University District, the most densely populated part of Columbus is probably the University District, with people stacked on top of each other and students everywhere. But what was really cool to see was that the friends, the community was huge. And so we've done a lot of steps to help support that. How can we improve the volunteer experience so you're getting more time to be social? And then also the education and learning part of it was very big too. So rewarding, fun, serene, these all were answers that we got. So if those are things that resonate with you, and those are things that you're looking for, I think you'll find it here. And then if you like weeding, I mean, that's a pretty big part of it. And somebody did say that weeding was why they volunteer here. But volunteers don't just only weed, but we are going to talk about that first and talk about, all the weeding things that we do first. And then we'll get into some of the other stuff after that. So the way that it works here is we have weekly volunteer garden sessions in each of our gardens almost every day of the week except Monday. So Tuesdays, it's Lane Avenue Gardens and Cultivar Trials. Wednesdays, Arboretum North. Thursdays, the Learning Gardens, and Fridays, Arboretum North. And you don't have to write this down. These slides will be posted on our website. So the Lane Avenue Gardens, which I showed you, mentioned it has the Labyrinth Garden in there. The Labyrinth is, and just the Lane Avenue Gardens in general are just gorgeous. They are expertly curated area that's been growing now. It's our oldest garden, so it's been growing for 40 years or more in some areas. Before we even became an arboretum, some of those trees were planted. So volunteers help manage the gardens from year to year, and that could look like weeding, pruning. Pruning was big in the winter, deadheading, pulling back dead leaves, checking on things for damage from animals and insects. And then also we do educational lunches monthly. And in fact, we started doing that in all 3 gardens this year too. So there's a little educational component with lunch, which is really fun too. So if you're interested in a more shady garden that has plant collections so you can learn about those plants as well, this is a good one for you. Then also on Tuesdays is the cultivar trials, where we have over 100 different new, never probably seen before cultivars of annual plants that are put into these beds, and then volunteers start them in February from seed in the greenhouse, and we plant them out on a big planting day. Then we start to evaluate them monthly on a 5-point scale, which is very easy and fun. And then we also have an adopt-a-bed thing, so you can say, oh, you know, this is my bed, this is the one that I tend throughout the season, which could mean weeding and deadheading usually. And then we also have a volunteer session Tuesdays from 9 to 11. If you wanted that social aspect, you can come out and volunteer at the same time as the other volunteers, or you can come at any time just to take care of the bed that you adopted. So that one's a very flexible garden, and it changes frequently, and it's beautiful because if you love flowers, it's just in full bloom from the minutes it's planted, and then the blooms only get more and more vibrant throughout the season. So it's a great research project too. On Thursdays, we are working in the learning gardens, which are the gardens up against Howlett Hall and Cotman Hall here in front of the office. Some of our prized gardens are here because they are endowed by donors. And so, you know, you think of what a little plot of land of grass could become, and we have transformed it over the years because of wonderful donors who have supported that in their names or a name of somebody else. And so, for instance, this garden right here, that's our Stephen Still Memorial Garden. And Stephen Still was a professor here at OSU in horticulture for a long time. And he taught people horticulture, and it was just so nice. 20 years ago, we dedicated this garden to him, and it was designed by famous plants horticulturist, Adrian Bloom, who's written books. And this is an exciting time because we're about to renovate it with new plants. It's entirely taken out except for the larger trees. And completely going to be renovated tomorrow and Wednesday. So this is a super exciting time to volunteer in the learning gardens. And we have about 30 different volunteers who will be coming tomorrow and Wednesday to get that planted. And because we're thinking this is just such a memorial, not memorial, historic event, because, you know, 20 years ago, we planted it and we celebrated and we dedicated it. And now here we are doing it again. Okay, and then Arboretum North. is that large area that I showed you. Here we really focus on pollinator habitat. And so over the past 4 years, we've installed a pollinator garden, and that's sort of priority one is growing and expanding and improving this pollinator garden right there that welcomes people to Arboretum North as we try to bring people in and go out there more. We also put on, and it's not on the slide, but we put on a fall foliage open house in September at this site. And the volunteers are the ones who really help us prepare this site to get it ready for this great open house. And so we actually now have 2 sessions, Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 11, where we're working out here somewhere. Might not be in the pollinator garden doing something. There's lots to do out there. And then if none of those work for you, before I move on to talk about other things, just know that some people aren't that interested in the social aspect of the gardening, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, there's like a couple that really loves to just be together, and that's their time to be out in the garden together. And then there's a student who couldn't make any of the 9 to 11s, but she really wanted to learn. So she comes on her own time and works in the garden. And really all that takes is a little bit of training from a horticulturist. And then you can start coming on your own time and calling it your own. So it can be a space that you also are interested in taking care of too. So if you're like me, you love the gardens, you love being out in them, but your main passion is sharing that love of horticulture and nature with others, and not necessarily being the brawn, which not that it's hard work or anything. But if you're more interested in the events, the projects, the tours, then this is the side of things where you can learn about that. Every year we have sort of this host of events that we put on year after year, and we've really become known for some of them, especially, for instance, the spring plant sale fundraiser. Am I still sharing? I hope I am. I'm sorry. I don't see the little screen that's lighting up that this is sharing my screen. Are you seeing it, Sally?
What?
Do you see my screen that's explaining all of this?
I do. Uh-huh.
Oh, good. Okay, for some reason it's not lit up in green. Okay, brief pause. All right, we're good. So we have these events year to year. So one of the ones that we're most known for is the spring plant sale fundraiser. And the plant sale fundraiser is this 3-day extravaganza. I call it our circus, and we just have a lot of fun. It begins back in September, October, when the leaders or the leadership teams of the plant sale start to gather once a month and talk about how we want the next year's sale to look. And then in May, it all comes together. And oh, it's just if you haven't been to it, we really welcome you to come and check it out. We had 200 volunteers this last May who tapped in some capacity. Tours in June and July. We're also starting to gear up for students coming back in August. So we start doing more outreach events at that point. In October and November, we start to think about tree planting. We start to think about our open house for at Arboretum North. We have our poinsettia sale workshop where we all learn how to make beautiful arrangements of greens and then sell them for a fundraiser for the Arboretum. And then in December, we do our winter solstice labyrinth walk. And the coolest thing, because we know so many volunteers really enjoy the learning aspect of volunteering here, is the Day of Education Conference. So if you're getting started as a volunteer at any point of the year, you are welcome to attend this conference, which we invite wonderful speakers for just this whole day, multiple session learning extravaganza that can be really eye-opening and good. So all throughout the year, we have events that are either meant to be for the public, meant to be for the OSU community, or meant to be inviting people into the Arboretum. So you um, or any volunteer can get involved as leaders for these events, like for the Spring Plant Sale fundraiser or the Poinsettia fundraiser. Or you can get involved as somebody who sets up the events or tears down the events or works at them as a docent. Oftentimes, like for the fall foliage open house, we have volunteers stationed around the lake at different tables, maybe teaching a little, you know, fun thing about tree ID or something like that, or leading the painting table. So there's lots of ways, and sometimes volunteers even help enhance our event offerings by being like, hey, I've got this unique skill, talent, or thing that I could teach to others in a workshop. So it's really just a great way to step out of the garden and then share your knowledge too. We have tours. This year, we've had, I think, about 25 tours already, and it's, a few a month, several a month, and our volunteers are the ones, along with our staff, who lead those. And so what we'll do is a request will come in. It might be, oh, this is a group of 10 employees from the library, and we just need a volunteer to show us through the Lane Avenue Gardens. It could be as simple as that, or it could be like, oh, we have a master gardener group coming and they really want to know about the special trees that are within the Arboretum. So just depending on your interest, um, you know, your ability to talk to groups, this could be a really wonderful way to get involved too, and much needed. So in our last few minutes, I have outlined the onboarding process, which can look different for different people. And just depending on what your volunteer commitments will be. So let's just start with the very standard steps to becoming, a long-term volunteer. You think you'll come back year after year. You are, engaged and excited. So this is, first step coming to this info session and completing this. And then you do a meet and greet with one of our staff members and filling out the volunteer application. So this meet and greet can happen at a volunteer session that's already happening, so that you don't have to come at a different time. You could just stay and volunteer and see if it works for you too. So it's kind of like a, just see if it works for you type of session. Then after that, if all is good, you have 2 pieces of paperwork to fill out, a release of claims and a photo release. You'll have a account to set up on our volunteer platform called Hands On Connect. And then you will submit your fingerprint background check. And this is 37-ish, depending on where you've lived in the past, I guess, $37-ish. And it's really the only time that you will ever be asked to pay anything. And we hope that it is like a, you get much more of a return on your volunteering here than that afterwards. You'll get a t-shirt, a name badge, and all kinds of fun opportunities after that too. But I just like to let people know that the background check is about $40-ish. So that's to become a long-term volunteer. If you're a OSU employee or student, you do not have to do the fingerprint background check. You would just do steps 1 through 3, and then because staff members already have that. If you're a master gardener already, you don't have to do that because you've already had your background check through OSU as well. So there are some ways that you can just get up and get going without even having to do that. And then there's also short-term helpers. This is often for students who know that they're just going to be here for a semester or a year, and they're really not going to be what we would call like coming every week, that type of thing. These are people who they're saying, I only want to help at the spring plant sale fundraiser. That's when I volunteer once a year for that. That's awesome. Or maybe they're doing 1 week or less in consecutive days, or 1 day a month or less. So you could say, well, I'm just going to volunteer at Chadwick once a month. And then that way you don't have to worry about the fingerprint background check at all. So you would just do the very simplest of steps, which is this info session, doing the release of claims and the photo release paperwork and returning that to our office, and then joining our mailing list so you know what's coming up. And the link to join that is right here. It's not automatic. I check it maybe once a week. And then once I see that that's come through, then I add you. Once I have transitioned off of my position and we're in this interim period where we don't have somebody checking that regularly, you can just email our general email list and get added that way and just say, hey, make sure you add me to your volunteer email subscription. When all the steps are complete, please take a moment to reach out to us so we know. I don't get any notifications when your background check has been completed. And so if you let me know, or our office, if I'm not here, you just let us know, hey, I completed the background check, then we can go in and check the status and make sure it's all good. So once you're all set, you are all good for being a long-term volunteer with us. So parking. Parking is free, although I don't recommend parking where this person did. You get this, we have this super great relationship with Campus Park, who runs all the parking lots all over campus. And what they do is they give us a set number of parking passes a year. So when you come out to volunteer, you get a free code, which you enter every day before you come out, online or on your phone. You enter that in and then you're set because it goes by your license plate. So you just make sure you give them the license plate of the car that you'll be driving that day. And then because we're only given a set number throughout the year, you just have to make sure you never share the code with anybody. That way we're making sure that those are there for our volunteers when they're here. The cool thing though is that the parking voucher lasts all day. So it's a $17 value. And so if you are going to be coming maybe early in the morning for a session and then later on in the day for an event, you would not need to worry about parking that day at all. Anywhere on campus, any surface lot. So just to clarify, and I should change the slide, we don't care about the parking kiosk anymore because it's all online. But you can park back here if you're coming to Howlett Hall. There's parking all along the streets. There's parking here if you're going to volunteer at Green Avenue Gardens. There's parking very close to Arboretum North at the 4-H Center too. So basically anywhere where we have our volunteer sessions, there is a very close parking lot, so long as construction isn't impacting it. So that's all I have. If you do have any questions, I am here as the program manager until July 13th. And then after that, it would be an email to our main, chadwick@osu.edu, and they'll be able to answer any questions that you have or forward them to the right person. So thank you so much.